communications, don't I? This
Yeah,
is fun, isn't
it? Is being an Instagram influencer essential?
It's more essential now than ever. That's certainly what the government have told me and instructed me. So I said, is it really worthwhile?
Perfect job for social distancing.
What's that? Sorry, mate.
Perfect job for social distancing.
Well, absolutely. That's what they said. They said, look, advertising spends down across the board. We need an effective way to still, we got to keep the economy going. We need an effective way to do that. They said it, and I said, you know what? I've been a key worker in my own mind for a long time, so happy to step up.
Just give us a sec, guys, and then we'll begin the chat.
Marston said he wanted to be. You should get Marston in.
Yeah, it seems like Danny's quite scared of coming on for some reason. Like, he never seems to want to come on.
It's an intimidating atmosphere, to be fair. Mangan, how are you getting on, mate? You all right, pal?
Yeah, but not bad. I haven't seen heard from both of you in quite a while.
Well, no, mate. That's the thing. That's why it's a good time, isn't it? Good time to reconnect. Good time to catch up. I think we've all got a lot of spare time on our hands, and why not do more of this sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've all got a lot of opinions on some pretty important TV shows, films, video games that people need to hear now more than ever, because people are just sat there. People are bored. People are boring, and they need interesting people to bring a little bit of light to their lives, which I'm more than happy to do. I'm more than happy to build that job in.
I'm willing to hear what you've got to sell me on Tiger King.
So with that being said, welcome everyone. No formal intro today. This is just an informal chat whilst we're in lockdown. Something interesting to do, discuss what we've been watching and maybe what we've been playing in the lockdown.
Yeah.
And to start off with, we've got something that everyone's going absolutely mental about, and that's Tiger King.
Yep.
For a bit of background, Luke, you haven't seen it yet, have you?
I have not seen it yet.
So would you mind if we spoil certain bits of it, like whilst we're in this discussion?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Okay. Are you sure? You didn't sound very sure there.
I want to go fresh.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't seen it, but
how come? Why have you been hesitant? What else are you watching? Just out of interest.
It's not what I've been playing. Like, I've just got done finishing Final Fantasy, and I was playing Resident Evil before that. So
what year is this? 1997.
I don't know.
Biggest games out a minute. Final Fantasy 7 and Resident Evil 3. I'm a bit like,
I know.
What year is this? What, 2020? What are we on about?
No, it's been good though.
How is Final Fantasy 7? Good laugh.
I mean, I didn't finish the first Final Fantasy 7. So
yeah, I've never played it.
I was expecting it to fill in some gaps that I might not have, so I can kind of see where the game is going for the next two parts.
Yeah,
like I've got it's a brief outline of where it's going to go, but I got to see some characters I've not seen before from the first one, so that was pretty good.
Well, with it being directed by Tetsuya Nomura, it could literally go anywhere. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same as the original Final Fantasy VII, because Kingdom Hearts bullshit could, of course, muddy the waters a little bit there.
I thought you were referring to a specific version of Kingdom Hearts there for a second.
Version of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, like Kingdom Hearts that you were now calling Kingdom Hearts bullshit. Like, you'd really rebelled against 3 and were like, oh, what do you mean Kingdom Hearts bullshit? That's what we're calling it these days.
No, just any.
I know what you mean now. Actually,
any newer Kingdom Hearts is
just
Kingdom Hearts bullshit.
The concept of you had a good thing and then you just, for no reason, decided to muddy the waters ridiculously. So
exactly, and that could happen.
I know what you mean.
So. But anyway, shall we get to it with Tiger King here?
Yeah.
So how did everyone discover this? Because me and Cleo just discovered it through the barrages of memes that we've been getting on Facebook?
A little bit similar for me. So I mean, I was probably I first started to see a few things where it was like one of the first things that registered to me that this might be a thing was I saw a picture of the Undertaker with a big tiger. And some people were just like, the Undertaker's the real Tiger King, and I was just like, and then just a few things about this Tiger King, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? So then sort of, I think then I had a quick a few people I knew then. So rather than it being like a forum or like just random memes, a few people I knew then had said, "Oh, have you seen Tiger King?" Whatever. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to get involved in this. If, people who I know now are saying this is something to watch. So from there, I think that's when I started it. But yeah, relatively similar introduction.
Yeah, and we've been watching in the past Making a Murderer on Netflix, which is phenomenal. And when we first started watching it, it was kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of a similar tone. It's like a Netflix style documentary. They've been doing really good with the documentaries lately, haven't they? I suppose.
Yeah, I think Making a Murderer was a real game changer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what spurred them on to be like, okay, we've found something here that we can kind of work with.
5 years as well, they were filming it.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see that guy had made sort of a reality TV show. Attempted to make a reality TV show.
Tried to make a reality TV show and sell it. Yeah, incredible stuff.
So it's good that his take on it was there. Like, I think that's one of the cool things about it.
How do you feel? So rather than going into any of the real specifics about it, how do you feel about it overall? Did you enjoy the show?
I definitely enjoyed it as a documentary. Yeah. I personally feel like people are taking it. Thanks, Clea. The glorifying, something that shouldn't necessarily be glorified. I took it more to be quite a serious documentary about like some pretty mentally ill people, to be honest. But yeah, a lot of people seem to
like. Is it like a comedy or is it like funny bits in it?
There's a lot of funny bits. Yeah, it's hilarious in some bits.
Unintentionally funny. Or?
No, very unintentional. Well, yes. I mean, like people aren't trying to make you laugh, if that's what you're asking.
That's exactly the case. Yeah,
it's very funny, and the characters in it are funny, but they aren't trying to make you laugh. Like, yeah, he's the only way I can really describe it.
So yeah, a lot of people are saying that this Joe Exotic guy is really cool and everything, and it's like, did you really watch the documentary? Like,
so for me, I think part of it is sort of it's perfect meme culture. Like, no one genuinely thinks Joe Exotic's a great guy, but the idea that he's a great guy is hilarious because of how much of a clearly shitty guy he is. So the idea that he's sort of like at the end there's some redemption, like he's trying to sort of bring them all down, and there's like this redemption around him, sort of thing. I think people enjoy Joe Exotic. Like, he's a very enjoyable character, but the whole idea of free Joe Exotic is like, it's almost comical because it's more like, and he also, I do believe he was set up, like, he shouldn't be in prison. Like, that is mental. Like, free Joe Exotic, I think, is a perfectly legitimate in the sense that the big cat trade, like, is legal, essentially. Like, I don't know what laws are being broken there, but he's breaking the same laws as everybody else. Like, he hasn't broken any laws uniquely to him, that are unique to his situation. Yeah. Unless the fraud stuff, like, and some of the money stuff potentially, but certainly not what he's actually in prison for.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
So free Joe Exotic, as far as I'm concerned, is completely legitimate. Like, I don't believe he should be in prison. I think the situation was a complete stitch up. Now, is he a good person? Absolutely not. That's not what's in question. He's absolutely not a good person. But that's what makes it so enjoyable. Like, essentially, Mangan, what the main character, principally the main character, and there's probably 2 or 3 main characters, but the main character of the focus of Tiger King is a redneck, like, gun-toting homosexual polygamist who runs a big cat, huge, dangerous cat zoo. Is the principal one of the main threads that are happening within it, and a documentary is about him and sort of some years that are taking place at this zoo, like some of the tribulations, the trials. Yeah, and that's Joe Exotic. So some of the
It's a nice centerpiece for the theme of the topic.
yeah, it works quite well. But some of the trials and tribulations that he's going through, and some of the characters he's up against, like his competitors, and sort of their shadowy histories. Now, obviously, one of the major things that's come out of the show is the whole the rebellion against Carol Baskin, who essentially is the good guy in the piece, if there is a good guy, but hasn't really come out of it as the good guy, because she is the only person, Mangan, who's running like a big cat sanctuary where she's trying to save big cats. She's fighting for legislation that would make it illegal for these people to do what they're doing, and illegal for people to own big cats in the United States. Because here's the big kicker, Mangan, that should get you really, really invested. There are more tigers in captivity in the United States of America than there are in the wild anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't know that before I watched the show.
No, neither did I.
And I think that's the kicker right there. That's the sort of piece that's the sort of piece that people should be taking from this, because the show is essentially an expose on a crazy industry.
Yeah. I think that's the main takeaway people should be, coming from it with, really, rather than
awareness. Yeah, definitely.
The meme.
And I think people are, but the characters in there are so comical and so engaging, and so like their lives are so incredible that it's very hard not to have a judgment on them. And the show portrays certain people in a certain way, namely Carol Baskin, who she's becoming a household name, if anything. People are genuinely just like, everyone knows who Carol Baskin is after having seen Tiger King. Like, she's like the national villain of this quarantine is Carol Baskin, insanely. I'm seeing people like, there are memes that are just like, COVID-19, fucking Carol Baskin's fault. And it's like, just very simple bullshit memes that are funny by virtue of knowing who Carol Baskin is. I think it's the biggest, to just sort of, I suppose, just sum up my feelings on it. I think it's the best Netflix documentary I've seen. I think it's better than Making a Murderer. Personally, Making a Murderer was spectacular, and obviously the character central to that is someone far more like, we really should be trying to get Stephen Avery out of prison. Like, my God, him and Brendan Dassey are so wrongly convicted. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So that is crazy. But Mangan, not only this Tiger King, whilst being a show that's principally engaging enough just to know that we're going to be investigating the big cat trade in America, it also has an unsolved murder in it. So much like Making a Murderer, it has potentially an unsolved murder where one of the main characters may have murdered her husband, right? So this is part of a character's shadowy past and profited massively from doing so. But it also has a potential wrong conviction, just like Making a Murderer, in the form of what happens to Joe Exotic. It has everything that Making a Murderer has, but it also has big cats and gay polygamism and suicides and all kinds of mental shit. Someone loses an arm. It has everything. It's so dramatic. It's ridiculous how dramatic it is. It has a character, Mangan, he's the biggest tiger person in the world, I guess, in America. Like, he trains tigers for pop stars, like to go on stage, and he's done all sorts, like the Hollywood tiger guy. And he has a harem of wives. So he has like 4 wives, all young impressionable girls who he got and sort of manipulated at a young age. This is another character. He's not even the main character. And how much you could have 8 episodes, 10 episodes just about him that would have been fascinating. The world is so rich, it's insane. You could watch 5 more seasons of just the general concepts of everything that I saw in the show. I could easily watch 5 more seasons of essentially the exact same content. Like, it's just unbelievably enjoyable.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's genuinely mental. Like, it is absolutely as good as everyone is saying it is. Like, it's not even so much you need to see it, and then your opinion on it is all that is really required. Because the question now is, what did you think of Tiger King? Not have you seen Tiger King? I assume everyone has seen it. It's unmissable. Like, it's absolutely incredible. Really is one of the just most Just
How
it's
long is
incredible.
it?
7 episodes, 8 episodes. I think there was a new episode that I haven't watched because it's like
Oh,
they
so
put one
it's,
out.
like, still
They try
ongoing.
and capitalize on the fame a bit.
Oh
of it,
yeah,
and
they've
I
put
haven't
an
been on.
extra episode out, haven't they?
Yeah, I haven't
Oh,
watched
right.
that, and I don't really have any interest in doing so.
So just before we move on, going back to Carol Baskins, because
Yeah.
obviously I personally believe that she had a pretty crooked past, judging by, you know, that mainly that motivational video she did where she was like, if you think if you think you're a rich person and you think like a rich person, you'll become rich. It's all about how you think and stuff like that. Basically just someone who believes that she deserves to be rich, and then she's also earning money off of this tiger sanctuary, even though she's putting it forward.
The cat trade.
You know, something that's way better than these zoos. You know, there's sometimes a very fine line between a zoo and a sanctuary, and I think she's pretty much riding that line. So yeah, I don't see her as like a good character in the story at all.
No, I think personally, I have a lot of sympathy with her because she's getting a lot of hate now, like ridiculous. Because this is such a global phenomenon. Well, I mean, certainly in the UK and America, like this is the biggest thing going, and especially in quarantine, like everyone has seen this now. Like so many people, and when you literally have Kim Kardashian tweet, Kim Kardashian has put out a tweet. Do we think that Carol Baskin murdered her husband? Now, obviously, the show presents. Whether it's my opinion or not is irrelevant. The idea that a huge megastar like Kim Kardashian can freely tweet that about a real woman. This is not a character. We're not discussing you know, who killed. Yeah, we're not discussing like who killed. You know, like oh bloody hell, really hate Walder Frey. Anyone else think this Frey guy's a right bastard? It's not like that.
Well,
it's
people went crazy about hanging the little boy in the Night's Watch, like saying, "Get him hung."
Yeah, let's hang Ollie from the night. Let's hang the little Ollie, boy in the watch. But it's like, but you know, that's one thing. That's a TV show. Those people aren't real. Like Carol Baskin is a real woman. Big Cat Sanctuary is a real place. This is a real situation, and her past is real. Now, whether I think she killed her husband or not is irrelevant, really, because I personally, based on the evidence that was presented to me in the show, and how I don't believe any evidence has been provided by them subsequently that says she did not do it. It only says that she's quite a good woman, and I believe that. I don't actually believe that she's evil. I believe she killed her husband in pretty poor circumstances, where he was a bit of a dick. She was they were both probably like in over their heads with a tiger world, just crazy. We've seen what it's done to everyone else.
And just how insanely rich he was.
Yeah, and it feels like she killed him, she's profited, but then she's sort of reformed, and like, you know, while she probably is making quite decent money from it, it seems like they're at least trying to do something positive for tigers and to try and prevent that trade from continuing, whether it hurts them or not, really. So it's like, and also her husband, a lot of people were making fun of him. He seemed like such a nice guy. Like, I really thought he seemed like such a nice guy. Like, if anything, almost so nice that it was sort of like, do you know who you're dealing with here, mate? You know, like almost like he was a little bit blind to it a little bit, but that's just my perception of what I was presented with. The idea that people were genuinely given a death threats and all that kind of shit is just absolutely horrendous. Like, and she should fit, and like they've come out and said we feel really betrayed by the Netflix producers, and rightly so. If they presented it to them like we're trying to help these big cats, and then they portrayed them in the way that they did, like it's just, you know, there's plenty of I imagine there's plenty of negativity around Joe Exotic that they didn't present. For example, how he didn't sing on any of those songs. Like, he's a country singer who sung those. You know, it's another guy who sung those songs. It wasn't Joe Exotic himself who sings the songs.
Yeah,
it's like some other guy, but he portrays it as if it's him singing, and it's like, you know, he's like the guy's just portray. He puts that out as if like, well, they didn't show that in the documentary. Why wouldn't they? Like, if they're out to discredit people or out to portray them in a certain way, why wouldn't you put that in there? And I think there's loads of stuff.
Despite the documentary showing pretty much all of her shady past, I do think that obviously my takeaway from it is that she was reforming herself and trying to be
100% like
a better person.
exactly. I feel like everyone in that guy's family who come on and say that she took all the money, I think she did. I have no idea how fair a situation is like that. They clearly didn't like each other. And if she has the estate, then she has the estate. And if I was her, I'd be probably making a power play. You know, like you'd be making a power play whether in a situation like that anyway, whether you killed him or not. So, but I mean, at the same time, I think just also, you know, like it's more that, well, the way that the police thing was presented, the guy who was the investigator is like, I think she killed him. Like, you know, the people closest to it, who had the most evidence, think that that's what happened, and that's for me. I like, well, the stuff she's saying about Costa Rica, there isn't enough evidence seemingly within it that they're presenting. The guy went there, no one had seen him. Well, he's living in Costa Rica somewhere. It's not that big a place. Surely someone would see this millionaire white guy walking around. No one's seen him. Like, you know, that it tells me something that's probably, well, you know what, maybe he's dead and she's killed him. So, but yeah, she's took a lot of heat from that, and I think that's a lot of bullshit. And ultimately, it's just a very, very enjoyable show, and you should come out of it thinking, fuck me, big cats are in a horrendous situation. I cannot believe this exists. Like, what a bunch of lunatics Americans are in general. You give them something special and they will fuck it unbelievably up. Like,
they'll fuck it quite literally in some cases.
Well, literally. Well, I don't think any bestiality was implied in the show. Certainly, I didn't see any. But
well, you haven't watched the extra episode, have you?
Oh, so, Christ, no, I've not watched the extra episode. Is that what happened?
Maybe you ought to, I guess.
Fucking hell.
Because I think
you ought to watch the extra episode.
Actually, I didn't even see. There you go, man. There's bestiality involved as well, just in case you needed more.
Well, this is just what I've heard from possibly the extra episode or some other news story that came out about the police searching Joe Exotic's apartment and stuff. So,
what did they find?
Do you want me to tell you?
Well, yes, please.
Okay. There was apparently some stuffed tigers in there with like fuck holes in them, so they could like have sex.
But not a live tiger. Not a live one. Not a live tiger.
No, a dead stuffed tiger. They had they had like a sex dungeon with a stuffed tiger in it with holes that they could like have sex with.
Yeah, but that's, you know, that isn't bestiality. That's just them shagging a toy.
That's just normal, okay.
Well, it's not normal, but I mean, it's not quite bestiality. I mean, certainly from my, you know, he wasn't alive. But, yeah, so I mean, yeah, but it has everything. Clearly, that's just more reason to watch it. Yeah, phenomenal show. Okay. Loved it.
Should we move on to something Luke can actually put his input in now?
Go.
I think we should talk a bit about the rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I'd love to. I can't believe it feels like I watched. I can't believe we haven't discussed this yet. Like, there hasn't been a time where we've all met up, have we, or anything like since then?
No. There's been a lot of YouTubers talking a lot of shit about this movie. So obviously we're probably going to retread very old ground.
Oh yeah.
But I've basically watched it in double speed, just because I thought it was not worth my time. You know, to actually watch the full movie.
So you watched it at 2 times the speed, so everyone moved a bit quicker.
Yeah.
Is that genuinely true?
Yeah.
That's fucking mental.
So it was lightsaber.
I just thought it'd be a waste of time.
In like seconds.
What was that, Luke?
So those lightsaber fights must have been over in like seconds.
Yeah, there was a few lightsaber fights that were over in literally seconds, but then
surely you took nothing from it. Like, what did you take from it? Like, surely, like either you watch it, or you don't. Surely, like, how has that helped you get a critical view on it?
I could still understand everything that was going on. Like, for instance, I picked up on a lot of early stuff that was basically like, Luke Skywalker was actually doing shit, like, before he was on the island. And characters would sort of say, oh, this is what Luke was trying to do. And that's just all, like, tell, don't show bullshit.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We're being told about this epic adventure that Luke Skywalker apparently went on because he was so shit in the previous movie. They thought, oh, well, we'll have to give them something. And then just the title crawl itself. Like, usually the title crawl is sort of like,
let's get you hyped.
introducing you to the movie. But I felt like this title crawl was kind of just like these things have happened in between. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like leading you into the movie. It's just like
The second one's very much like a lead in it.
Yeah. And that just seeing Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, in capital letters in the title crawl, I was just like,
it was game over right there, wasn't
it? What? Emperor Palpatine is back.
Mangan, what did you think, mate? Because did you watch it at the cinema?
Yeah, we saw it at the cinema. Yeah, the fact that they're just announcing in the credit scroll that the Emperor's just back, with just like no explanation as to how this has occurred.
If it wasn't in the crawl, it was very shortly afterwards, wasn't it? It was the first stuff with Kylo Ren, like he's basically immediately there.
It is pretty much immediately.
It was the first scene. But
and if you think about it, that makes the title crawl pointless in a way.
You could just tell the whole story on a title scroll if you were going to do it that way.
Yeah. And the reveal of like him cloning himself and stuff, which is one of the worst elements of the entire like prequel and sequel trilogies. The whole idea that there are all these clones and shit. It's revealed that Palpatine was cloning himself like pretty much right at the beginning.
So before we discuss any more of the technical or get into any of the nitty gritty, what do we think? For me, a large part of my opinion hinges on one thing, which is the Emperor being back. What did you, just as a concept, Jake? Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
Terrible idea.
Mangan?
Go on, Luke.
Only if there's no like actual good explanation for it, then yeah, it's a bad idea. Because he was part of the main trilogies. He was the villain part of the main trilogy.
Do you think
like Kylo Ren?
Do you think there ended up being a good explanation for it?
Not really, because it just kind of undid everything that happened in the two movies prior.
Yeah, it did.
And it's just like, we'll just put Emperor in because he's and we'll see if he can carry the movie.
Yeah. Well, Snoke's dead now, so we have to have an Emperor-style character.
Sorry, I interrupted you before, Jake, but why did you think it was such a bad idea?
Mainly because of how most people recognize that the prequels are so terrible, just like from an objective standpoint. But the only sort of redeeming quality of the prequels, or one of the redeeming qualities, is that Emperor Palpatine is just such a funny character. So it felt like in this one, they were trying to make him more of a serious character, because lots of the comedic stuff comes between like Poe and Finn, I think, in these movies.
Okay, yeah.
Not that I find them funny in any way, but like they just seem to be
supposed to be a comedic? I don't think the Emperor was supposed to be comedic, was he?
But he was in the prequels.
Do you mean as Senator Palpatine? I don't think he was comical, was he?
People think that he's a comical character, yeah.
What do you mean?
Like the fight between Palpatine and Yoda, where he's just
that isn't played for laughs. But it isn't funny. He's a villain. He's supposed to be a scary villain.
You're having me on here.
Jake, he's not a comedic character.
You're having me on.
I'm not having you on. Are you being obtuse? What are you talking about? He's not played for laughs. You thought it was you being.
I'm not talking about him being played for laughs. I'm saying people find him funny.
So what you're saying is the Emperor as a character. Do you think he worked in the original trilogy? I think he really works, and I think that whole in the original trilogy, I think they pretty much define a lot of really just the fantasy concept, really, of an overarching villain. And then you have the main villain who's conflicted and sort of becomes good at the end. And I think Star Wars, whilst I'm sure there's probably some Shakespeare players that are like that, and he's not the first thing to ever do it, I think that really sort of it's a very common trope within fantasy and that sort of element, and sci-fi and all that kind of shit. Is that sort of there's an element to that a lot of the time now, I think. So I think in the original trilogy, the Emperor works really, really well. But are you saying in the prequels, he's comedic accidentally?
Yeah, I mean,
there is some value in that. Haven't you? Yeah, I have seen the villains. I do think he's quite funny.
Doesn't know that he's the villain as well.
Well, yeah, as Palpatine, he's relatively. humorous. And yeah, I suppose there is that sort of Palpatine just like, he's clearly evil. What are you doing? But I think I suppose one of my favorite lines from a line that I just do every now and then, just for that, is, "You killed her in your anger." And just the Emperor just be like the whole Darth Vader. That scene is so legendarily funny. Like, so terrible that, yeah, I mean, the Emperor brings big value to the prequels. Yeah, definitely, I'd argue. Yeah. Whereas in this movie, do you think he's a bit serious, a little bit dull?
Well, I think they're trying to make him serious, like just the whole tone of like when Kylo is walking through the cloning chambers and stuff, and there's all these hooded figures everywhere.
Pretty dark and gothic, isn't it? Like, suddenly he's got like a huge army of, well, the film had no time to explain to us who any of those people were, so I don't know who the army was. They just had a lot of fans.
At one point, Palpatine says, "Perhaps you've betrayed me. I could always turn my armada on you." And it's like, so Palpatine suddenly has an armada bigger than Kylo Ren's.
Like, didn't need him for anything. So before we go into the nitty gritty of why the movie itself is an abhorrent piece of shit. Like, it is fucking beyond atrocious. But just before we go into the depths of that, I want to talk about just specifically the idea that the Emperor is back and my take on it. I think it's an awful idea. And it's probably the laziest idea, maybe in cinematic history, maybe. Like, I can't think of any lazier ideas. Like, do I imagine even like Mean Girls 2, like, yeah, it's a real retread that they don't really do very well, but I imagine they had to come up with something original. Like, they had to do something with it that was like, well, even if this is similar to the first movie, we'll do this a little bit differently. I've never seen Mean Girls 2. I've heard it's awful, but like, they probably had to try a little, like, with it. This is literally just like, how do we make this movie without trying even a little bit? What is the easiest way for us to just make a movie that will appease Star Wars fans?
Yeah,
we'll bring back the Emperor. It's like, my God, like, was it a fucking 6-year-old in the meeting? You had no better ideas than that. I also think it's the whole concept of the Emperor being back is not mentioned in the first or second films. It is not mentioned at all. So not only him being back isn't necessarily a terrible idea, but you have to deliver on it. It has to be the idea. You can't just come up with it at the last minute. It's so awful. As soon as he was back, I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is mental. Now, obviously, for some reason, the second movie got a lot of hate. Now, the hate that people give it, I don't think people care about the casino thing being a bit clunky or the general plot being a bit quick. Or, I think there's problems in the plot. I don't like Rose, the character, isn't particularly well done. Her relationship between her and Finn's really clunky, and they got rid of it in this one. So, she was badly sidelined, but I mean, fair enough, I guess. It didn't work that well. But I guess people were just. But I think mainly the problems that people had with the movie are just childish bullshit. Oh, Luke Skywalker wasn't powerful enough. What has that got to do with the movie? It has nothing to do with the movie. Like, Luke Skywalker being cool has nothing to do with Last Jedi working as a film. Luke Skywalker in the movie serves his purpose perfectly. Like, the character he is in the movie, there's themes, there's payoffs, like, characters say things to people, and then that character either goes against it or follows it or learns a lesson. There's at least some depth to what we were being told, to what happened in the movie. There was at least an idea of what they were trying to do, and a large part of what it was setting up for was Kylo Ren being the main villain. Like, for once, we're not going to have an Emperor. The conflicted rival character is going to be the major villain. And that's an interesting concept. It's something we certainly hadn't seen in the Star Wars universe before. And it was taking Ren into a really interesting direction, that because now your major villain's conflicted, what's going to happen? So just bringing back the Emperor to basically supersede all of that, undo all of that, is, I just think, an absolutely terrible decision. And I fucking hated it before it even got going, and was subsequently terrible.
So, yeah, I'd agree with that in the fact that I think The Last Jedi, I could understand kind of what was going on. It was very clear, like, everything was just clear, even though I didn't particularly enjoy it.
Did you watch it? Was it running at half the speed?
Yeah, I was watching that one at half speed, so I could. Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, like with Rise of Skywalker, it's kind of just like I was going to say they introduce so many different concepts
for a
finale.
Yeah,
well, I'm talking about things like the Sith language, the idea that there are Sith relics that lead us to the Sith homeworld of
Exbilion or whatever it was called. Yeah,
Exegol.
What are the evilest letters there are? Exegol.
and one of the things that's hardcore Star Wars fans will always say is, well, you should have read this comic that explains all about the Sith homeworld and the Sith language, and it's just like
wonderful.
No, the Sith should not have a language. That's just bullshit.
Well, the details to me, like the details don't matter to me really, like because whilst they introduced those concepts, and I think if you're going to introduce those concepts, you probably have to deliver quite well on them. And I suppose maybe that was what I hadn't really thought about it too much, but maybe it was a little bit jarring that these things just suddenly existed. I think it was more problematic that these things just suddenly existed. Like, and well, a big problem in the movie for me is that the plot elements, there is absolutely zero audience involvement in anything that's happening. The characters just tell you what is happening. Like,
yeah.
So this is a major problem for. I'll try and bridge this as a running problem throughout the film. So very early on, Kylo Ren has a thing, takes a thing, and he knows more than you do as the audience. Far more. He just knows exactly where he's going, and you're just like, oh, well, I wonder what Kylo's up to. Finds all the shit. Later on, sort of the characters find some stuff, and then they just start saying, hey, this is this does this. Oh, well, that means we need to go here. Who's coming? Right, you and you. No, you come, I'll go here. And then it's just like, why is that? That's not satisfying as a viewer to see that happen. Like,
that was kind of my point about the whole Sith language thing. Is like, I believe it's R2D2 just is like,
just knows
it's in the Sith language, and it's just like, what? I didn't even know they had a language. Like, this isn't in any of the other movies.
Well, exactly. Like for me, the concept of a Sith language doesn't necessarily bother me, but certainly how it's executed is dreadful. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of the time the characters are just moving from spot to spot, and you have no idea where they're even going or really why. Like, they just talk about some gibberish, and then they say they just have to go there, and we need to do this, and they figure out this here, and then they're just gone. And like the movie moves, those scenes moves at a breakneck speed. It is moving so quickly, like it never breathes. There's never really any time for any. Like, I quite like a lot of the scenes, and the best scenes in this movie all involve Kylo Ren, like every single one of them. But in the other movies, there is at least some sort of softer scenes where Rey's sort of having a dream and Ren's like, hello, Rey. Like, sort of, there's like the movie slows down at least at points. I think it moves at a ridiculous speed. But then you as the viewer, there's never like, oh, he said that earlier, so now they need to go do that. There's absolutely zero payoff for you as a viewer, because they always go somewhere new that you've never seen before. Like, you want to talk about fan service. Fan service to me is like them saying, we've got to go backwards, like, the frozen fields. What's this referring to? And then someone been like, Leia been like, I know what that'll mean. And they're going back to Hoth or something. Do you know? So it's like the idea that they'll say something or they'll allude to something, and you as the viewer, because you have all the knowledge of Star Wars, you know what they're talking about. So you're like, oh my God, it's going to be this thing. Yay, it is this thing. There's none of that. Like, it's not even like the dark, it doesn't even build the Emperor up into a bit where it's like, I think it's going to be the Emperor. I think it's going to be the Emperor. It is. It's like, like, even so when fans are like, oh, it delivered on fan service. I really don't think it did at all, because besides just having the things in there, like, at no point do they say, all right, so for example, here's another example of this. Lando Calrissian is just in the movie for no reason. Like, they're literally, it's so genuinely insulting as a movie viewer to just have something like that happen. They're literally moving from A to B. Like, oh, we need to get out of here. Lando's like, I'll give you a ride. Or someone says something. Turns up out of nowhere. They get onto his car and they're like, wow, you're a legend from the, like, they're literally almost like, you are the guy from the other film, aren't you? Yes, I am the guy from the other film. Great. Where do we go now? Think you go this way. See you later. And that's essentially what that scene, like, That is the
That's
dialogue.
skeleton of it, yeah.
That's what happens in the scene. You are the person from the other movies. Hey, fans, this is him. Good to see you. We'll be on our way. It serves no value to the plot or anything. You could achieve that far more. Like, that isn't satisfying. That isn't fan service. It's fan disservice. You are playing on the idea that you can literally do this as lazily as possible with no effort. Just show them a picture of Lando fucking Calrissian. Here's Lando. Here he is. Look at Lando. Great movie. Best of the trilogy. It was so much fun. And apparently it did work for some people, but it didn't work for me. Like, why not have a scene where the characters are like, we need like, you know, like with Han Solo in the first movie, it's like, oh, there's a smuggler or, you know, like there's something happening, and it sets up the idea that Han Solo is going to come back into it. I can't remember exactly what the setup is, but it's a little bit like, well, the Millennium Falcon, and it's more about the character. Like, we need a smuggler. Who's it going to be? It's Han Solo and Chewbacca. My God, do you know, like, you're thinking to yourself, oh, he's a famous smuggler. Why not have, like, I can't remember exactly what Lando's role is in Empire. He's running some sort of casino or some sort of sky resort thing. I don't really know exactly what his job is. But why not be like, sorry.
Isn't he also a smuggler, Lando?
Yeah, I thought he was a smuggler, actually. Yeah. So let's say Rey needs to get aboard the fucking Exegol. She needs to get aboard the ship and find this thing. Well, we need the world's best smuggler. You're never going to find him. Oh, well, there's only one man who could do this job. Well, there's two men who could do this job, and one of them's dead. We're talking about Han Solo. Well, who's the other one? Oh, it's Lando. It's Lando. You know, like some sort of build-up and payoff as to why he's involved, why he needs to come back into the plot, and here he is, and he's doing something valuable in modern Star Wars. That's fan service. This was just a load of fucking bullshit. It's just showing a character just to show him. Like, it had nothing to do with anything, and it was just fucking horrendous. I hated every fucking second of it. Like, but yeah, sorry. There you go.
The same complaint could probably be leveled at the Force ghosts that come back as well. Which
the things where Rey's just sort of hearing some ghosts.
No, Luke, as in Luke Skywalker returning as a Force ghost.
Oh,
and then
right,
actually being able to control things as a Force ghost as well. Like, it is literally just like putting Luke Skywalker in there for no reason, really, because Rey could have done all of the things that he did, lifting the X-wing out of the water.
Oh,
do you not even remember this scene?
It's I can't remember. It was pretty fucking forgettable, wasn't it? Like, but I suppose he was on the island. Luke's a little bit different because he was in the other movie, and I felt he had a role to play in the other movie. And yeah, I know where you're coming from. I do see what you're saying. Sorry, before I got on the Lando thing, which I really hated, but a really, really big point for me in the movie that I thought was really bad, like, and not just Star Wars bad. Like, there's a lot of Lando style shit where it's just really lazy Star Wars. They're just throwing little Star Wars things at you. I thought the battle sequence at the end, for me, really eclipsed just how fucking terrible this movie is. Like, it was absolutely awful. First of all, the fight in this nameless armada that's just come out of nowhere, as you've correctly pointed out, Jake. So there's no real, you haven't set the stakes of who the villain is, because you have no idea where this armada's even fucking come from. And Richard E. Grant has out of nowhere appeared as the key villain. Don't know why they didn't just stick with Donald Gleason. They had him there. He could have easily played the part. He could have taken back command on Kylo Ren's redemption and been like, look, I told you all, he was a bastard. He's never been evil. We are evil. I'm back in control. You had the character there with 3 movies worth of history behind him, who you just let Richard E. Grant come out of nowhere and go, no, you're not the villain, I am. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Why did you do that? So stupid. So you have him as the villain of this set piece, but you haven't set up any of these armadas at all, or what they're capable of. Characters just start saying things. So Poe Dameron just says, "We got to take out the blasters. Here, I will do it." But like, there's no like in a really good Star Wars scene is the battle on Hoth, where they're starting to learning to like tie the legs up on the AT-ATs or whatever, and like the characters are failing. They're struggling, they're seeing what the obstacles are, and then they're trying to overcome them. And you as the viewer are like, yeah, that makes sense because that worked there. And that the battle shows you. The battle, you are getting educated as a viewer as to why your heroes are going to win by what you are seeing, what the movie is showing you happening to them. they don't just come up with it out of nowhere. Like, you're seeing that this is going to be a plausible solution. In this, there's no, like, it's not even like a scene where they're like, right, let's charge head on. Thing shoots the fucking lot of them. Right, let's not charge head on. Let's do something else and strafe round and take them out. The movie just ignores all logical concepts of how you execute a battle scene. Like, there's just nothing like that in there. Instead, the characters just say, kill those things, blow them up, shoot them. And they're just flying around doing things. You as the viewer are just like, what emotional... I have no emotional stakes in any of this. The characters are just doing things. I have no idea why they're doing them or what they're trying to achieve by doing them. So I have no idea what the goal is here. Like, there's no... It doesn't even set the goal up. It's just like, blow that up, kill that, shoot there, boom, boom. It's just like everyone's just doing random shit. It's so awfully executed. Never mind the fact that you have this just absurd people riding horses against spaceships. It was just totally mental. Like, what the fuck was that? It looked ridiculous. Like, I have no idea what was going on there. Like, it's just it's just like, and that for me is just, what are you doing with this movie? You failed to execute this is the final battle of a trilogy. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it just couldn't be executed any worse. It's so awful. Yeah, really fucking... And that for me is just like, the movie is just doing... Like, you as the viewer just aren't being taken on a journey at all, which is exactly what Star Wars should do. Instead, you're just being shown characters doing things that you have no idea why or what the payoff is or what the goals are.
Yeah,
do you have any input into this, Luke?
No, I agree, yeah. I was just watching, like, random things happening on the screen, really. There was a question I did want to ask you, though, but, like, you know, watching the original trilogy, you had you made the main protagonist Luke Skywalker. How do you think that Rey compares? That's like
really terribly, because she just learns things like just from intuition, and like really powerful things like the healing abilities, and she seems to be just more powerful than most characters in the entire Star Wars universe. Literally pulling, starships down and stuff. I feel like what we had with Luke Skywalker is, as Aaron said, us being on this journey with him, and everything he learns, we learn at the same time. Whereas with Rey, it's just like, oh, I know how to do this now. Okay, how? How does she know how to do it? Like, it's not explained in any way.
Yeah, you just automatically know that she's going to save the day, don't you? Like, there's no real mystery to it, or
and there's no logic to it. So Rey's, I think Daisy Ridley puts in a perfectly good performance. Her and Adam Driver, I think is particularly outstanding, but she's more than adequate. Like, does a really decent job with the material that she has, and is generally likable. As a performer, like, good energy, brings a lot to the screen. Like, certainly not her fault. You know, like Hayden Christensen, you could really level some criticisms at him a bit, like saying, you know, in terms of the sort of, he's not particularly warm at all. At least raising, you know, genuinely likable. But like Jake says, she doesn't go through any sort of trials or tribulations. Like, we don't see her character develop. Like, the development happens off screen in every movie. Like, every movie just has it develop off screen. Like, the stuff with Luke in the second film is the most enjoyable part with her, really. You at least see her sort of developing some stuff, but Luke isn't really training her as such. There isn't really a lot of that. It's more just she's doing some things and tries to learn more about what actually happened. I think the movie lent really heavily on the whole idea of who are Rey's parents, just because, well, we need a mystery. The second movie tried to get rid of it by just saying that your parents were nobody, because it's not important to your character. Rian Johnson clearly didn't want Rey to be held back by the legacy of the Star Wars trilogy, didn't want her to be connected to it, wanted her to stand alone as a character and be a unique individual within the new trilogy, so the new trilogy could stand on its own. Clearly, Disney and J.J. Abrams had other ideas and decided to make a Palpatine's daughter, so that we can never ever look at these movies as anything other than cheap retreads of the originals, which is which is a massive disservice to her as a character. But yeah, you look at Luke and we see Luke never really gets that good in the time that we're with him. Like, being a Jedi Master is clearly very, very difficult, and Luke never really gets that good at it. Like, he doesn't beat Vader. Like, he doesn't really complete his training fully with Yoda. Like, he's sort of just a fish out of water, thrown in a situation way over his head. Whereas Rey seems more than competent at dealing with everything. Her characters almost lean on her as a crutch because she's so powerful, which could have been interesting, but isn't in any way. That's how I think they stack up the characters.
What were we saying, Luke?
Saying I agree with it. Like, the whole idea of her being a protagonist is just like, she just gets everything right first try, and there's no real effort on her part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I think that's just the way that you're supposed to, develop a protagonist, is that the viewer needs to go on a journey with them.
Do you want me to give you an interesting? So, just as a side to that, have any of you watched Avatar?
As in the anime?
Yeah,
of course.
Oh, not the film, no.
No. So, well, yeah, you can watch the film as well, but I'm going to refer to Avatar: The Legend of The Last Airbender, the show. So, have you seen?
Not James Cameron's Avatar.
Have we ever properly spoken about it, Jake? Because I'd like to do a little review thing of that with you.
Yeah, we have off camera.
God, I'm an absolutely gigantic Avatar fan. Fuck me, it's brilliant.
Me too.
But just as the exact same thing happens in that. So, Avatar, the first one, Avatar Aang, the whole series is structured over him learning to control different elements. So each series is an element that he has to learn to control. He's a child, so you go on the journey with him and get him getting good. In the sequel series, The Legend of Korra, she's very good from the very beginning and is supremely powerful very early on. And yet, in terms of the way the characters' powers are presented, they're very, very different.
It's not quite as black and white as that. Like,
no, it's not quite as black and white as that, but she only has one element to learn from the very beginning.
Yeah.
But her character has to learn various other things. The trials and tribulations are separate from what he had to do.
Yeah.
The character is different, but similar, but it's just satisfyingly broken away. So that Legend of Korra stands on its own instead of constantly harkening back to Avatar. The fan service in Legend of Korra is genuinely satisfying fan service because of your knowledge of the original show. Any little references are like, oh, that's funny because of that.
Yeah.
Or any characters returning, it's like, wow, they could play this part because I know what they can do from the previous, from what's thingy. Just the exact, like, that is an exceptional fantasy production. This is an exceptionally shit fantasy production. It should have made no money. It is awful.
Yeah, I thought you were going to bash on Legend of Korra then, but
no, it's great.
I really like Legend of Korra.
Yeah, fantastic. It doesn't make the same mistakes. But it's a good comparison in my opinion, because you have a successful series and then you've tried to produce a sequel to it. Mm-hmm. Like these movies, I think I personally feel that they're worse than the prequels, and I think considerably worse than the prequels, which is just insane, absolutely insane. And you couldn't have told me that in 2015 or 16 when the first one came out. You just couldn't have told me that was how it was going to go. I don't understand how in this day and age you could produce a trilogy that's this bad. In a year when Endgame came out.
Force Awakens was all right when I first saw it.
Yeah, I like Force Awakens. I quite like Force Awakens, and I also
now I have to compare it to a trilogy. It's not the same.
Yeah, it doesn't. I just have zero interest in watching it really because I know what's to come. And Force Awakens also is an unbelievable retread of New Hope, which isn't a big issue because the things it does differently, it does really well. So Kylo Ren is different and he's enjoyable. The new characters are different. So putting them in familiar territory isn't really an issue because you're seeing new characters deal with familiar things and they sort of respond a bit differently. And it needed to be familiar because of how bad the prequels were and how farly removed they were from the original trilogy for me. So it being like Star Wars was a very, very good thing for Force Awakens. The more Star Wars like, the better. But then, yeah, Last Jedi, I also like elements of it. I like that it tried to be different. Whether the things it tried to do differently, you personally enjoy it or are irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Different was what was needed, and he made decisions, big decisions, and then the third movie, instead of just leaning into those decisions and being like, right, well, this is the direction we're on, let's make the best movie we can. They decided to go the other way, and I really think if anyone who liked this movie, which was basically everyone, when I saw it, I could not believe the positivity that people were coming out with. I couldn't believe it. I was staggered. Like, I came out of it. I was at a private screening with the CEO of my company is a massive Star Wars fan, so he got a private screening at Everyman. So it was a few of his mates and then a few people from work. And I came out and everyone was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, that was a fun piece of shit, wasn't it?" And then everyone was like, "Oh, what? Oh, I really liked it. Yeah, me too." And a few people, and I was just like, "Oh no, yeah. I mean, I've had a good evening, but it was a piece of shit, right?" And everyone was just like, "No, we all really liked it." I was just like, cool.
That's one of the things about Star Wars fans, though. They seem to like everything that is like just anything Star Wars.
It's so shit. I don't understand. It's like I know what good fantasy looks like. And another thing, like, it's not. I don't even hate it because it's just it's just awful. Like, in the year that Endgame came out and closed and dealt with 100 characters over 10 years worth of films, over 10 years, and just absolutely smashed it. Like, it's one of the most enjoyable movies I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, for a year when that movie exists, Star Wars, which is a simple universe that you can do anything with, to just be as bad as it was, just unforgivably poor. Unforgivable.
Yeah, I feel like the creators basically were tied down because The Last Jedi had such a huge backlash from a certain group of people, but that group of people weren't these people who will just like anything Star Wars.
Yeah.
And those are the people that they should have been sort of aiming this movie towards. Just like, okay, we'll do some things a bit differently, but we'll roll with what we've got here. And just appeal to those core Star Wars fans that aren't going to be too nitpicky about everything. But instead, they've kind of appealed to no one, I guess, by just sort of retconning loads of stuff.
I think for some people are coming out of it very favourably. I've seen a lot of positivity online about it that just I find staggering. Again,
that's what I mean. It's just like those Star Wars fans that will literally like anything with the name Star Wars.
But anything that's just like the original. Anything. Oh, the original. I like the original movies. So if this is, that's from the original movies. So I like that. It's like, you're a fucking 2-year-old. Like, just critically think about what's being portrayed. Like, just Lando's presence means nothing. He didn't do anything. Apart from, in fact, I didn't want to discuss the details, and I have very, very little time. I need to go do something. But there's an unbelievably clunky line where Lando's like, she's like, "I don't know, my father." He's like, "Maybe I could show you." And he's like, really weird. I can't remember what the line was, but it implies like he's going to shag this girl who might be his daughter. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's right near the end.
It might have flown by in the 2 times.
Unbelievably weird line that I was just like, that was hilarious. Like, that was so creepy. Who thought that was a good line to keep in this film? It was so weird. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's so awkward. And yeah, that was at the end of it. But besides making a really inappropriate comment to a girl where he implies that she could be his daughter, which again is just weird. But I mean, besides that, he does absolutely nothing. But yeah, I didn't want to get into the details of it because there's loads of little things that are shit about it. But
we could go on forever.
Conceptually, it was fucking appalling, and it was awful.
But should we wrap it up there then?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, mate. Sorry, guys.
That's fine.
We'll do this again, and we'll get a few more people on to discuss a few more things.
Yeah, hopefully this has been really fun.
I'd love to do an Avatar discussion with you, Mangan. If you have never seen Avatar before, seriously go and watch it. It's unbelievably good.
Yeah.
That's
another recommendation for Luke. Go on, Luke.
But yeah, Sellers is like seeing it, so like he's obviously like talking about it and stuff. So,
what Avatar?
After give that a watch. Yeah, Avatar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the best. I think it's the best fan. It's one of the best fantasy things I've ever seen,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
if not the best.
But yeah, to anyone who's watching or watched, thanks very much, and we'll hopefully see you next time. And now I really need a toilet. So I'm going to once again click end broadcast and hope that this has all been recorded. Cheers, guys.
See you later, guys.